What would you do if you came back from serving your country overseas, only to find strangers living in your home because your HOA sold it without your permission? Marcus Hall had been gone for 11 long months. 11 months of desert sandstorms, sleepless nights and orders barked across a battlefield far from home. He had carried the weight of the flag on his shoulder, fighting for freedom and dreaming of the moment he'd finally step foot back on Texas soil. When the plane touched down at Dallas-Fort Worth, Marcus exhaled a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. Home. Finally home. He had pictured this moment so many times, pulling into his driveway, seeing the ranch he worked years to build, dropping his duffel bag inside the door, hearing the creak of his porch swing, smelling the cedar wood of his living room. The cab ride dragged, every mile stretching longer than the last. But when the driver turned down Willow Creek Road, Marcus leaned forward eagerly. His heart raced. Then, his smile disappeared. There were cars in the driveway, none of them his. Children's toys scattered on the lawn. Fresh curtains hung in the windows. Confusion gripped him. His duffel bag felt heavier as he walked up the path. He knocked firmly, bracing himself. The door swung open. A man he had never seen before stood there, irritation written across his face. "Yeah? Can I help you?" the stranger asked. Marcus's voice trembled, caught between disbelief and anger. "Help me? You're standing in my house." The man at the door blinked at Marcus Hall like he was the intruder. His voice carried the kind of entitlement that made Marcus's blood boil. "Your house?" the man scoffed. "No, buddy. This is our home. We bought it fair and square through the HOA. Marcus froze. The words hit like a bullet. HOA? His hands curled into fists at his sides. He had paid every mortgage bill. He had arranged for his sister, Rachel, to check the mail while he was deployed. How could anyone claim his home had been sold? "I don't think you understand," Marcus said, his voice low but sharp. "This ranch has been in my family for years. I built half of it with my own hands. I just got back from serving overseas. So, whoever told you this was for sale, lied." Behind the man, a woman appeared, holding a toddler on her hip. Her eyes widened at the sight of Marcus in uniform, dust still clinging to his boots. She whispered something to her husband, but Marcus couldn't make it out. Then, from the corner of his eye, Marcus noticed movement across the street. Linda Green, the HOA president, stood smugly on her porch, arms folded. She wasn't surprised. She wasn't shocked. She knew. "Linda!" Marcus barked, stepping off his porch. His voice carried across the street. "What the hell did you do?" Linda tilted her chin up, not flinching. "The HOA had every right, Marcus. You were delinquent on your dues. 11 months is a long time to leave property neglected. We sold it. End of story." Marcus's jaw tightened. The weight of her words crushed him. His home, his sanctuary gone while he risked his life abroad. But Linda didn't realize something crucial. Marcus wasn't just a soldier. He was backed by the US Army. And soon, her end of story would be just the beginning. Neighbors began peeking through blinds and stepping onto porches as Marcus Hall's voice echoed across the street. It wasn't every day a uniformed Army veteran came home to find strangers living in his house. Linda Green, arms folded like a queen surveying her kingdom, smirked at Marcus's anger. "You should have read the fine print, soldier. HOA rules are clear. You fell behind, and the board voted. The property was auctioned legally." "Legally?" Marcus barked, his voice cracking with disbelief. "I was deployed, serving this country while you vultures were circling my home. You knew I couldn't attend your meetings. You knew I couldn't fight back." The man in Marcus's doorway, now revealed as Tom Jenkins, the so-called new owner, shifted uncomfortably. He hadn't expected confrontation. "Look, man," Tom muttered, "we bought it fair and square. We've got the paperwork. If you've got a problem, take it up with the HOA, not me." Marcus's sister Rachel arrived just then, rushing down the street after hearing the commotion. Her eyes went wide when she saw her brother standing in front of strangers in their family's ranch. "Marcus, what's going on?" she asked, breathless. He pointed at Linda, his voice sharp as a blade. "They sold the ranch. Sold it right out from under us." Rachel's hands trembled. "That's impossible. I paid the HOA fees while you were gone. I kept the place up. They can't just—" Linda cut her off, smug as ever. "Don't waste your breath. We followed procedure. If you don't like it, hire a lawyer. But as far as the HOA is concerned, this ranch belongs to Mr. and Mrs. Jenkins now." A hush fell over the crowd gathering nearby. People whispered, stunned by the cruelty. Marcus took a deep breath, steadying himself. His voice dropped, quiet but commanding. "Linda, you picked the wrong soldier to mess with. If this is the war you want, then I'll bring the army to your doorstep." Marcus Hall stood in the middle of Willow Creek Road, chest rising and falling with fury. Linda Green's smug smile still burned in his mind. Strangers lived in his home. His sister stood in shock, and the neighbors whispered like it was entertainment. But Marcus wasn't a man who bowed to bullies. He had faced worse than HOA politics. He had faced war. Rachel tugged his sleeve, her voice trembling. "Marcus, what do we do? They've got papers, lawyers. We can't fight them alone." Marcus set his jaw. "We won't. This isn't just my fight anymore." He pulled out his phone, his hands steady as stone, and scrolled to a number he hadn't dialed since leaving deployment. Colonel James Porter, his commanding officer, a man who understood loyalty, sacrifice, and justice. The line clicked. "Hall, you back on US soil already?" The colonel's voice boomed with surprise. "Yes, sir, but I've got a problem," Marcus said, his voice iron. "While I was gone, my HOA sold my ranch without permission. I came home to strangers in my house." Silence crackled on the line for a moment. Then the colonel's voice hardened. "They did what? While you were serving your country?" "Yes, sir. They claim it was legal. They're hiding behind paperwork." Marcus heard a long breath on the other end. "Then Hall, you sit tight. No HOA sells a soldier's home while he's deployed. Not on my watch. I'll make some calls. You'll have the army behind you before the day is done." When Marcus hung up, Rachel looked at him with wide eyes. "Who was that?" Marcus's lips curled into a grim smile. "That was the sound of the war turning in our favor." Across the street, Linda Green had no idea what storm was about to roll into Willow Creek. The morning sun glared across Willow Creek Road, but the air felt heavy, thick with anticipation. Neighbors gathered again, gossip buzzing like hornets. Marcus Hall stood tall in front of the ranch that was stolen from him, his sister Rachel by his side. Then came the sound that silenced everyone, the deep, rumbling growl of military vehicles. A convoy rolled down the street, olive-drab Humvees followed by a transport truck. Soldiers in uniform stepped out with precision, boots thudding against asphalt. At the center of it all was Colonel James Porter, his presence commanding every pair of eyes. Linda Green's smirk faltered for the first time. She quickly straightened her blazer and marched forward, trying to mask her unease. "What is this?" she demanded. "This is private property, and the HOA doesn't appreciate—" Colonel Porter raised a hand, cutting her off without a word. His voice carried like thunder. "Mrs. Green, I've been briefed on the situation. Let me make this very clear. The United States Army does not take kindly to its servicemen being robbed while fighting overseas." Linda bristled, her voice trembling but defiant. "The HOA acted within its rights. We followed procedure. If Mr. Hall has a problem, he should take it up in court, not drag the military into our community." The colonel's eyes narrowed, sharp as a blade. "Procedure? You sold the home of a deployed soldier. That's not procedure. That's exploitation. And exploitation of servicemen falls under federal protection." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Neighbors exchanged stunned glances. Some nodded in quiet agreement. Marcus finally spoke, his voice steady but cold. "You wanted a war, Linda. Well, here it is. And I don't fight wars alone." For the first time, Linda Green realized the HOA's grip might be slipping. Linda Green paced her living room, cell phone pressed tight to her ear. Her perfect manicure tapped against the glass coffee table as she hissed into the receiver. "No, I don't care if he's a veteran. This is HOA jurisdiction. We followed bylaws. I need you to confirm that in writing. Today." Her attorney's voice on the other end was cautious. "Linda, this is bigger than bylaws. Selling a deployed soldier's property can trigger federal protections. You might be in violation of the Service Members Civil Relief Act." Linda froze. Her throat tightened. "The what?" "The SCRA. It prevents soldiers from losing property or rights while deployed. If Hall presses this, you and the HOA could be in serious trouble. We're talking lawsuits, fines, even criminal charges." Linda hung up before he finished. Her confidence cracked, but she refused to show weakness. "No soldier, no army, no law is going to humiliate me in my own neighborhood." Meanwhile, across the street, Colonel Porter and his men were speaking with Marcus and Rachel. We've already contacted federal housing authorities, Porter explained. If the HOA violated the SCRA, their sale is void. That ranch is still yours, Hall. Rachel let out a relieved gasp, but Marcus only nodded, jaw clenched. That's good to know, sir. But they won't go down without a fight. Linda's stubborn. She'll twist every rule she can find. You're right, Porter agreed. But so will we. The difference is, we have the law on our side. By late afternoon, Linda emerged from her house, her smile brittle but rehearsed. Attention, neighbors, she called, her voice carrying across the street. Do not be alarmed. The HOA is handling this situation. The army has no authority here. But the soldiers didn't move. Their presence alone told a different story, one that left Linda Green sweating under the weight of her own lies. By evening, Willow Creek buzzed like a stirred hornet's nest. Families stood in clusters on lawns, whispering about the spectacle that had unfolded. Army vehicles lined the street, their presence intimidating but steady. Linda Green saw her grip slipping. The army's involvement was dangerous, but if she could sway the community, she might still hold control. She rang the neighborhood bell, a symbol of HOA meetings, and soon nearly every homeowner had gathered on the cul-de-sac. Standing tall with a clipboard in hand, she spoke with her trademark authority. Neighbors, you've all seen the chaos today. Soldiers blocking our street, outsiders meddling in our affairs. Do we really want our peaceful neighborhood turned into a military zone because Marcus Hall can't follow simple rules? Murmurs spread. Some nodded uneasily. Others frowned. Linda pressed on, her voice honeyed but sharp. The HOA only acted to protect property values. Abandoned homes attract crime, weeds, and pests. We followed procedure to keep Willow Creek safe. Marcus may be a soldier, but rules are rules. David Collins, a longtime neighbor, stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. With all due respect, Linda, Marcus didn't abandon his home. He was serving our country. There's a difference. A ripple of agreement stirred the crowd. Rachel clasped her brother's arm, whispering, "They're starting to see through her." Linda's smile stiffened. "Be careful, David. Speaking against the HOA can come with consequences." Before she could continue, Colonel Porter arrived with 2 officers, his voice carrying like steel. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to be perfectly clear. The army is not here to cause trouble. We are here because one of your own was exploited while deployed overseas. Federal law protects him, and no HOA rule overrides that." The crowd fell silent. Linda's attempt to poison the well had backfired. For the first time, her authority wasn't absolute, and Marcus knew her power was crumbling. 2 days later, Marcus Hall stood outside the county courthouse, his uniform crisp, his jaw set. Beside him, Rachel gripped a folder full of documents the Army's legal team had helped compile. Colonel Porter wasn't far behind, his presence a reminder that Marcus wasn't alone. Inside, the HOA had already taken their shot. Linda Green strutted into the courtroom, flanked by 2 attorneys in grey suits. She carried herself like a queen walking into a throne room, her smile razor-sharp. The judge entered, and the room quieted. Linda's lawyer wasted no time. "Your Honor, the HOA acted fully within its rights under community bylaws. Mr. Hall was absent for 11 months, left the property neglected, and failed to pay several months of dues. The board followed procedure, and the home was sold legally." Linda leaned back, smug, certain the paperwork would seal Marcus's fate. But Marcus's representative, a JAG officer assigned by Colonel Porter, rose calmly. "Your Honor, the HOA's argument ignores one crucial fact. Mr. Hall was not on vacation, nor abandoning his property. He was deployed overseas, serving his country. Under the Service Members' Civil Relief Act, it is unlawful to foreclose, evict, or sell a service member's home without a court order. The HOA violated federal law." Gasps echoed through the courtroom. The judge turned to Linda's lawyers, his brow furrowed. "Is this true? Did the HOA seek a court order before proceeding with the sale?" The attorneys shifted uncomfortably. One stammered, "We believed the HOA bylaws superseded." The judge's gavel slammed down. "HOA bylaws do not override federal law. If what I'm hearing is accurate, the sale is void, and serious penalties may apply." Linda's face drained of color. For the first time, the Queen of Willow Creek realized she might be the one standing on trial. The judge's gavel still echoed when he leaned forward, eyes locked on Linda Green. "Given the severity of this alleged violation, I am ordering an immediate investigation into the Willow Creek HOA. Until this is resolved, the sale of Mr. Hall's ranch is suspended. The so-called buyers have no legal right to occupy the property. A collective gasp spread through the courtroom. Rachel squeezed Marcus's hand, tears welling in her eyes. For the first time since stepping off the plane, Marcus felt a weight lift from his chest. But across the room, Linda's carefully crafted mask cracked. Her jaw tightened, her hands gripped her clipboard until her knuckles whitened. "This isn't over," she hissed under her breath. Outside the courthouse, neighbors gathered, some offering Marcus handshakes, others patting his back. "We didn't know, Marcus," one whispered. "If we had, we would have stood with you sooner." Marcus gave a curt nod. "It's not just about me. If they can take my ranch, they can take yours. Today it's a soldier. Tomorrow it could be anyone." Colonel Porter added, his voice steady. "The Army will be cooperating fully with federal investigators. This community deserves the truth." But while the crowd buzzed with support, Linda slipped into a black SUV with her two attorneys. Her face was stone cold as she whispered, "If federal law is against us, then we'll find another way. I didn't build this HOA empire to watch it crumble." Her lawyers exchanged nervous glances, but Linda's eyes gleamed with dangerous resolve. She wasn't finished, not yet. And Marcus knew it. Standing tall, staring at the courthouse steps, he muttered to Rachel, "Linda's not the type to go quietly. She's going to strike again." The war for Willow Creek wasn't over. It had only shifted to darker battlegrounds. Within a week, federal housing investigators arrived in Willow Creek, escorted by Army legal officers. Clipboards in hand, they went door to door, interviewing residents, reviewing records, and demanding access to the HOA's financial books. Neighbors who once feared Linda Green suddenly found their voices. One after another, they confessed how the HOA had fined them unfairly, threatened them with liens, and bullied them into silence. David Collins, who had long suspected foul play, finally spoke openly. "They've been pocketing money for years. Landscaping fees, community repairs, none of it adds up. We asked for receipts, but Linda shut us down every time. When investigators entered the HOA office, they found filing cabinets locked, digital records mysteriously corrupted, but they were prepared. With a warrant in hand, they seized computers, bank statements, and meeting minutes." Colonel Porter stood beside Marcus as boxes of evidence were loaded into trucks. "Hall, this isn't just about your ranch anymore. This looks like systemic fraud. Green may have dug her own grave." Rachel's eyes widened. "You mean the HOA could be dismantled?" The colonel gave a slow nod. "If the evidence holds, not only dismantled, people could face prison." Across town, Linda watched the raid from her SUV, fury burning in her chest. She gripped the steering wheel so hard her knuckles turned white. "They think they can strip me of everything? No, I built Willow Creek. These people need me." Her attorney's voice was cautious. "Linda, the evidence looks bad. You may want to consider a plea deal before this escalates." But Linda Green wasn't thinking about surrender. She was thinking about revenge. As the sun set over Willow Creek, Marcus stood on his porch, the porch of his reclaimed ranch. For the first time, he felt hope flicker. But deep down, he knew Linda wasn't finished. The battle was entering its most dangerous phase. Night draped over Willow Creek, but Marcus Hall couldn't sleep. The house was his again, at least temporarily, yet a storm brewed in his gut. He knew Linda Green wasn't the type to vanish quietly. And he was right. Just past midnight, the roar of an engine shattered the silence. Headlights cut across his ranch, and a black SUV screeched to a stop. Linda stepped out, heels crunching against gravel, her face twisted with rage. "Marcus!" she shouted, her voice echoing across the land. "You think you've won? You think the Army can protect you from me? I am Willow Creek. Without me, this place collapses." Rachel rushed to the porch, fear in her eyes. "Marcus, she's lost it. Don't go out there." But Marcus strode into the yard, shoulders squared. "Linda, it's over. The investigation will bury you. You're finished." Linda laughed bitterly, pulling a stack of papers from her bag and waving them like a weapon. "I still have influence. Judges, bankers, contractors, they all owe me favors. I'll drag this fight through every court in Texas if I have to. You'll never truly win." Before Marcus could answer, military headlights flared down the road. Colonel Porter's convoy rolled in, soldiers fanning out with calm precision. Porter himself stepped forward, his voice cold as steel. Mrs. Green, consider this your last warning. We have enough evidence to charge you with fraud, harassment, and violation of federal law. If you continue this stunt, you won't just lose your HOA, you'll lose your freedom. For the first time, Linda faltered. The bravado in her eyes flickered. Neighbors, awakened by the commotion, gathered on lawns, watching as the Queen of Willow Creek was cornered. Marcus's voice cut through the night, steady and final. You sold my home while I was defending yours, and now you're going to answer for it. Linda's empire had crumbled. All that remained was the reckoning. The courthouse in Willow Creek was packed, every seat taken by neighbors, veterans, and reporters who had followed Marcus Hall's story. The tension was thick, as if the whole town was waiting for a verdict that would decide more than just one man's fate. Linda Green sat at the defense table, pale and trembling, her once perfect posture wilted under the weight of federal charges. Gone was the HOA queen who ruled with arrogance. In her place sat a woman cornered by her own corruption. Marcus entered with Rachel and Colonel Porter by his side. The room fell silent, respect radiating from every face that turned toward him. This wasn't just about a house anymore. This was about dignity, justice, and a community reclaiming its soul. The prosecutor rose. Your Honor, the evidence is overwhelming. Mrs. Green orchestrated fraudulent foreclosures, targeted veterans, and abused her authority to enrich herself. We recommend full restitution, the dismantling of her HOA board, and a prison sentence. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Linda tried to rise, her voice cracking. This is a witch hunt. I built Willow Creek. The judge's gavel slammed down. You destroyed it, Mrs. Green. Court finds you guilty on all counts. Cheers erupted as Linda was led away in handcuffs, her empire collapsing for good. Later that evening, the community gathered at Marcus's ranch. Families who had been evicted unjustly were given back their keys, their homes restored. Colonel Porter raised a glass. To Marcus Hall, who reminded this town what courage looks like, Marcus, standing before his neighbors, spoke humbly. This isn't just my victory, it's ours. No one, veteran or civilian, should ever be stripped of their home by greed. Tonight, Willow Creek gets a fresh start. Rachel squeezed his hand as fireworks lit up the Texas sky. For the first time in years, Marcus felt at peace. His battle was over. Justice had finally prevailed.